Amazing. This flock's hard at work growing their nest pensions, like this blue tit.
Dave?
Listen to the way they communicate.
Dave!
I mean, it's frankly extraordinary, that letter. I've read it several times today. And just to be clear, this was a response to the Prime Minister of Norway, but also the President of Finland, who traditionally gets on really well with Donald Trump. I mean, let's just break down some of it. The tone, this is the leader of the free world. And at times, it sounds like this is the moanings of a petulant child, talking about, we had a boat that landed there too, we should have the rights as well. Also, really disturbing lines. I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. That's going to be hugely worrying. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, various leaders of NATO countries were saying there's absolutely no way the US would think about invading Greenland to get hold of it. I mean, will this make them think twice? And then another line, which I think will have NATO leaders really feeling like they're banging their heads against a brick wall, is this idea that Denmark can't protect Greenland. And I think what I've heard from numerous leaders, whether it's the EU foreign policy chief, the Germans, people around the EU, is that they're not asking Denmark to protect Greenland alone. They're saying this can be done as part of NATO, and the US is obviously a key part. They're not saying you can't play a role in it. They're saying you should be playing a big role in this because you're a key member of NATO. And I think they'll be wondering, well, if you want more bases in Greenland, it's highly likely you can have them. If you're so worried about security, why have US troops been reduced from thousands to a few hundred? You know, if you want to have access to rare earth and other precious minerals on Greenland, you can apply for the permits. So they're saying you don't need to do this alone. It doesn't need to be us versus you. We can all do it under NATO and be safer together. They all agree that the Arctic does need more security. That's why they sent this exploratory mission last week, they say, that antagonized Donald Trump and led him to announce these potential tariffs on the 8 countries that did that. But they really aren't getting through, it seems, this message that we're not against you, we're trying to do this with you.
Just talk to us a little bit more about the EU, Siobhan, because there's talk, isn't there, of some pretty chunky tariffs in retaliation. 93 billion euros? Yeah.
Now, listen, I think the last year has been really tough at times for many EU leaders, and they've had to bite their tongue when it comes to dealing with the US president, particularly, for example, the way that he seems to have given Russia preferential treatment, the way he's treated President Putin in comparison to the rough treatment that we've seen for President Zelensky time and again. But I think what has happened now with these tariffs is many are saying enough is enough. They frankly, in many corners, are talking about bullying and they have to stand up to bullies. We had a news conference today from the German Vice-Chancellor, and he said this: I have no interest in an escalation and do not search for one. We're ready to find solutions. We're offering our hand, but we are not prepared to let ourselves be blackmailed. And similar messaging coming out from Sweden, for example. So what can the EU do? Well, listen, they don't want to pick a fight with the US. They have a huge trading interest with the US. They are key allies in NATO. So the first thing they're going to be looking to do, I think, is diplomacy and trying to send out some of those traditional Trump whisperers, particularly behind the scenes at Davos. So they've got this opportunity to try and do that. I know, for example, that the Germans are planning to have a meeting with Trump either on Wednesday or Thursday. If all of that behind the scenes whispering fails, then there's an extraordinary meeting of EU leaders on Thursday. Well, they'll talk about next steps. Now, possible next steps are unfreezing, as you were saying, this 93 billion euro tariff package, which has been frozen since July, but could come back online against the US from the 6th of February. That's one option. Another option is the so-called trade bazooka. This is something that Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has been talking about over the weekend. This is the anti-coercion mechanism. It's never been used before in the EU, but if they unleash this, then essentially it would put restrictions on things like investments, banking, access to markets. It would be really painful. These are serious measures and they would hit the EU as well. But I do think many now are feeling that they've hit their red lines, that they have to stand up, because frankly, if they don't, what lies in front of them? They're letting a key ally bully them into submission, but also NATO can't really withstand the US just taking a country, taking an area, territory that it wants by force. And so really we are now in extremely uncharted waters.
President Trump not backing down from
his push to take over Greenland, citing security concerns and criticizing Denmark's inability to protect the Arctic territory. The president posting on Truth Social last night, NATO has been telling Denmark for 20 years that you have to get the Russian threat away from Greenland. Unfortunately, Denmark has been unable to do anything about it. Now it is time, and it will be done. Joining me now is former NSC Chief of Staff under President Trump, Alex Gray. Alex, good morning. Great to see you. So the president is, of course, dead set on acquiring Greenland and even announcing tariffs on European countries. And those European countries are dead set against this, and they're going to be holding this emergency summit today over what the heck to do. So what happens next?
Well, thanks for having me, Carly. I think our European friends really need to step back from this performative domestic politics that they're engaged in and realize that this is about a core interest of the United States. Greenland's a part of the Western Hemisphere. It's been under threat by Chinese and Russian aggressive activity over the last, as the president said, several decades. Our friends in Denmark haven't done anything about it. And the president was actually on the path last week with this meeting that Vice President Vance chaired to have a really successful path forward where we were talking directly to our Greenlandic friends and our Danish allies about a path forward for the United States to have more ultimate control over Greenland. And then the Europeans decided to showboat, send in this absurd contingent of troops to act like they were going to stop some sort of crazy American invasion. As you know, Carly, we have unlimited access militarily to Greenland as it is. There's nothing to invade. The question here is, how do we protect the future of Greenland from a Chinese or Russian long-term, some sort of long-term Chinese or Russian influence operation? This is a very, very silly thing the Europeans are doing, and I hope they'll back down before they damage the relationship further.
Well, Alex, on that contingent of troops, plus you mentioned Russia and China, Senator Tom Tillis, who's a Republican but has become a critic of President Trump, posted this on X saying this response to our own allies for sending a small number of troops to Greenland for training is bad for America, bad for American businesses, and bad for America's allies. It's great for Putin, Xi, and other adversaries who want to see NATO divided. The fact that a small handful of advisors are actively pushing for coercive action to seize territory of an ally is beyond stupid. It hurts the legacy of President Trump and undercuts all the work he has done to strengthen the NATO alliance over the years. So what's your response to the senator there? In particular, him saying that dividing NATO is great for Russia and China.
Well, I couldn't disagree more with the way the senator phrased that. I think that the only people dividing NATO, and by the way, Carly, the person who saved NATO is Donald J. Trump. That was an alliance that was headed towards complete disintegration because no one was paying anything for defense until President Trump stepped in and forced the alliance to finally be relevant again. And now the Europeans, for these kind of performative domestic reasons, are sending troops, I think, to show their own people that they have some sort of role on the world stage. That's dividing NATO. That is doing immense damage to our ability to stand steadfast against China and Russia. President Trump is moving us toward a long-term solution where Greenland can be a closer part of the United States for our security and for the security of NATO.
Okay, so moving over to Iran, the Supreme Leader out with some new comments this weekend, calling President Trump a criminal and blaming him for the brutal takedown of protesters. I mean, it's hard to believe that that's their line of defense, but President Trump did respond to the Supreme Leader's comments, saying it's time to look for new leadership in Iran. What he, the Supreme Leader, is guilty of as a leader of a country is the complete destruction of the country and the use of violence at levels never seen before. The leadership should focus on running his country properly, like I do with the United States, and not killing people by the thousands in order to keep control. So the president does have military assets going to the Middle East. It's going to take about a week for them to get in place. Is it only a matter of time until strikes happen? And if so, could the target be the Ayatollah?
Well, it's certainly an absurd statement by the Ayatollah. I think what the president's doing is he's giving himself options, right? He's restoring deterrence, and we've seen that whether it's in Caracas, whether it's in Syria, whether it's in all over the world. The president's been restoring America's credibility. The fact that we're willing to use force strategically, surgically, and carefully, that puts the Ayatollah and his minions on notice. But more importantly, the president's preserving the ambiguity that he needs in this situation. The president loves the fact that you never know what he's going to do. Our adversaries never know if the president's willing to use force. They know he's willing to use force, but they never know if he's going to use it in a specific situation. And I think the Ayatollah is very much taking that into account when he's figuring out his next move, because he knows President Trump is not going to allow him the freedom of action that, let's say, a Joe Biden or a Barack Obama did.
Well, Iran's judiciary has recently indicated that executions may go ahead, and if they do take place, that will certainly get the attention of President Trump. Alex, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your insight.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News.
It's okay, son. You with the AA?
how the meeting went. The Danish foreign minister said they have a fundamental disagreement and agree to disagree. But the prime minister of Greenland was a little more blunt. Trump said, I'm going to take action on Greenland whether they like it or not. According to their prime minister, they most certainly do not.
Greenland does not want to be owned by the USA. Greenland does not want to be governed by the USA. Greenland will not be part of the USA.
Why didn't Venezuela think of politely saying no? I mean, the guy in the hoodie figured it out. Listen, Trump's not really an ask for consent kind of a guy. He doesn't have to ask. When you're a star, they just let you. And of course they don't want to be part of the United States right now. Nobody wants to be. People from the United States don't want to be part of the United States right now. It's like being cast in a movie that already has Bill Cosby as the lead. People don't want it. This prime minister of Greenland, the guy in the blue thing, is Jens Frederik Nielsen. He's 34 years old. Before becoming prime minister, he played for their national badminton team. So, hey, maybe we could settle this with a game of racket sports. We put this guy up against this guy, against Roger Wells Federer, and see what happens. Winner takes all. Maybe Greenland should own us. They seem to be doing a better job than we are. On the World Happiness Report, Denmark has the second highest score behind Finland. Denmark controls Greenland. To find us, you have to scroll all the way down to 24th place. We're under Slovenia, the country Melania wishes she never left. Donald Trump's secretary of real estate, Marco Rubio, has reportedly been put in charge of coming up with some kind of a plan to purchase Greenland. He wants him to go there and buy the country. It's like when you send your kid to the store to buy cigarettes. Make sure they give you change, okay? My guess is at the end of this, Trump's going to make some kind of deal to add more troops and military bases, even though we already have a deal in place. We've had this deal for almost 75 years now. It's so nuts. You know, they did a poll. Only 1 American in 5 supports this idea of taking Greenland. Sometimes I feel like Trump is trapped in some kind of a weird, horrible curse. Like maybe he hates being president, so he's doing crazy things to try to get out of it. But because of the curse, it backfires. It's like, what if we defund all the cancer research? They love it, Mr. President. They do. All right, what if I pardon a bunch of scumbags because they gave me money? What would that? No problem at all. No one even cares. Damn it. All right, I know. I'll invade Greenland for no reason at all. And even that doesn't work. Nothing works. The curse is too strong. Or maybe he's just focused on Greenland to take our attention off a different island, perhaps. We are still waiting on those Epstein files. Meanwhile... Oh, don't get excited. Those are coming about when we get his tax return. So we are operating at peak hypocrisy right now as we violently stifle protests while simultaneously warning other countries not to violently stifle protest. The idea that Trump now has us involved in all these other countries, toppling regimes, is exactly the opposite of what he ran on. He let Ukraine hang out to dry because of this idea. He ran on a platform that was basically, who cares? America first. That's what he promised. And now that he's gone completely in the other direction, he leaves a trail of loyal supporters to try to explain it, including Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, who we are very fortunate to have on the Armed Services Committee in this country. Mark is either for or against what they call regime change.
But you just said...
What if you earned airline miles on your...
I'm going to tell you something. There's a lot going on. There's some very serious stuff going on, not just here, all around the world. And yet, I cannot help but to stop everything when there are monkeys on the loose. Not here. You can relax. The loose monkeys have been spotted in and around St. Louis. Or have they? This is a weird story. Yesterday, we learned that a troop of vervet monkeys were seen at a park in other parts of northern St. Louis. But as word spread and the local authorities there began to investigate, a flood of photos and videos started to appear online, which at first seemed like real photographs. But then the monkeys were wearing Cardinals jerseys and face paint to the point where animal control didn't know what was real and what was fake. Now, this is video of one of the escapees, or at least it appears to be video of one of the escapees. Honestly, we have no idea if that is real or AI. What do you think, Guillermo?
I think it's real.
I think it's real, too, but for the first time ever, we are not sure whether that's a real monkey or not. It became so confusing that the St. Louis Department of Health had to ask residents to please knock it off with all the fake monkey photos.
Were you guys having a hard time figuring out where the monkeys were because of all the AI Photoshop photos?
We did receive a tremendous amount of information from the community, but it was a challenge verifying the authenticity of some of that information.
Are we 100% sure the monkeys are real?
We have had one verified sighting by a St. Louis police officer that verified the location of one monkey.
By the way, I think all press conferences should include the phrase, "Are we 100% sure the monkeys are real?"
The best advice is to contact the Citizen Service Bureau and let us know the location of the monkey so that we can respond and contain. Please do not interact with the monkeys. They are highly intelligent and unpredictable. Letting us know where they're located is the best next step. Thank you.
Now, I don't think that one was real, but I do have a message to anyone who's posting fake AI monkey sightings. Number one, you're obstructing an active investigation. And number two, it's very funny. This afternoon, the Department of Health announced that they have ceased their search for the monkeys, which means either the animals are still out there somewhere and they gave up, or they're dead and they don't want to say it, or they never existed at all, like some kind of monkey version of The Sixth Sense. And then there was another primate sighting. An orangutan popped up in a very populated area of Detroit.
Isn't it nice to have a president that can go off teleprompter? You're so lucky I allow you into this room to even be with me. The mosquito and a certain snake, which is not a very nice reptile. This is a brutal reptile. You got bitten, it was over. It was just like, bye-bye, everybody. The mosquito and the snake. I don't know if we should have done better as well. I don't know. I told him not to do it. Donald Trump thinks he's hot stuff. They rigged the election on you. He won the electoral college, you know. Secure our border. They're very optimistic. Ping. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
That little routine at the end there was our president making fun of our former president, Joe Biden, who has cancer. When he goes low, he then goes a little bit lower. King Kong was in the Motor City today. He gave the finger and said F you to a worker at Ford who called him a pedophile protector. And then Trump delivered another banana speech at the Detroit Economic Club where he attempted to convince those in attendance that the protests in Minneapolis are not real. They're fake.
One of the reasons they're doing these fake riots, I mean, they're just terrible. I mean, you see it's so fake. Shame, shame, shame. You see the woman, that's all practice. They go practice. They go to areas, they take hotel rooms, and they all practice together.
That's right. They practice and they order room service, and they practice. It's like Motel January 6th is where they do it. And by the way,